Welcome back. Now, in our tech feature this morning, we look at how the pandemic has accelerated most digitalization trends and its major impact on job availability. And according to a McKinsey report, the future of work in South Africa through digitalization could result in a net gain of more than 1 million jobs in the country by 2030. Now, to tell us more, we're joined by Greg Newton, and he is Blue Prism's South African country manager. Greg, good morning. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I mean, in layman's terms, what is digitization?
Okay, in layman's terms, I mean, digitalization it's been able to sort of digitalize the process of getting work done. To give you an example, it's filling in forms online. It's all done digitally. However, if you look at companies, behind that first sort of customer engagement where they might do something digitally, like might be a credit card application, a loan, or whatever it might be, it starts off digital and very quickly becomes manual. There'll be large waves of people having to action various things to make that, to get the objective complete. And that's because the thousands of systems that large enterprises typically have gaps and don't talk to each other. So currently humans are used to plug those gaps. Digitalization is around, okay, how do we make this more digital, i.e. we don't have the humans in plugging these gaps. It allows to move quicker, make faster decisions, be more accurate. Those types of jobs are also very, very mundane, typical tasks, data entry and things like that. So those are the types of processes or tasks that would be replaced as part of digitalization. So it massively gives you the opportunity to improve productivity.
Now, a McKinsey report reveals that digitalization could result in a net gain of more than 1 million jobs in South Africa by 2030. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, so in terms of that, it also talks about some jobs will disappear, as has happened over time. But what it does bring is it brings a whole new requirement to business digitalization. So in the area I work, we create the digital workers, their software that go and access these systems, much in the way that humans used to. There is a huge requirement for people. There's a huge skill shortage for people that can actually come in and create or train the digital workers to work with business, to look at how improvements can be made, to manage that whole environment. So there's huge opportunities just in my area, and I see it today in terms of skill shortage. If you look wider than that, it's the growing ecosystem of a technology that can layer on the AI, the machine learning. All of these companies are popping up, all have requirements for sales, for marketing, logistics. So there's a lot of jobs there. And I think at the sort of macro level, being able to do a lot more for South African businesses, your productivity, you'll be able to create a lot more. You'll be able to process a lot more work. When it's digital, then you can also extend your reach. You're not relying necessarily on humans locally, which means you could sell into other geographies, into Europe as an example. So that will drive growth. As part of that, that also needs investment in infrastructure, in housing, which again drives jobs and the needs for jobs. Many of the jobs in the digitalization world, a large portion of those jobs haven't even been created yet. So there's lots of jobs coming that haven't even been created yet.
I mean, it also mentions that the technology adoption could triple South Africa's productivity growth and double per capita income growth. Explain this further for us.
Sure. Obviously, that's the McKinsey angle on that.
Yeah.
That much to do with what I was talking about before. If you look at just automation in general, if you're talking around fabrication, sheet metal fabrication, the robotics can minimize errors, maximize the efficiency and speed of what you can produce. You can produce more. If you're talking in financial services, you've been able to offer so many more products or actually execute more loans. There's a huge backlog of work. This technology, you're massively increasing your opportunity to drive productivity. And again, that's across many industries. And then it's self-fulfilling sort of prophecy almost. It requires more workers and more, there's more opportunities for business.
I mean, you also talk about, it would displace human workers from boring, repetitive jobs. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, so if you imagine at the beginning, I talked about the gaps in the technology. Some of those jobs are not using the humanistic behaviors that fulfill people. It's not, it's literally taking data from one place, entering it into another, following rules, just the sorts of things that's rules-based, using structured data that people don't like doing. Reconciling invoices, very laborious job, not fulfilling. Those are the types of roles that can be quickly automated, and actually a digital worker, a software worker, does that better than a human because they don't make mistakes and it does the same thing over and over. But what that does is it allows reskilling or moving of people into other roles that do focus on more humanistic, creative roles. And things like leadership, communication, problem solving, empathy. Those things can't be automated, and that's where humans really can add value, and it's moving people more into that space.
I mean, tell us more about some of the digitalization trends that have been accelerated by the pandemic.
Okay, so in terms of the pandemic, a good example would be, and it's how they've evolved this, but when the pandemic occurred, and obviously a lot of people were in trouble at that point, many of the banks were offering payment holidays for loans, mortgages, and so forth. Now, what they did is they made forms available online to apply for those. Behind the scenes, somebody had to check the form was completed correctly, did they qualify for this? And there's a number of checks and balances that have to happen. But when those people are obviously ill, and there's obviously not all of the humans in the background to do the work, an enormous backlog occurred. So digitalization, they were able to use the digital workers when the applications came in to go through, do all of the checks, and actually process those. So they cleared a backlog of one bank cleared a backlog of 100,000 applications in 3 days using that digitalization. Now that's specific to COVID, but now people have looked at that and said, okay, we can use the same for whether it's using the bank account, whether it's a loan or a credit card or a mobile phone, you can use the same, the thinking for those types of things.
All right, Greg, thank you so much for talking to us, for opening our eyes. Greg Newton is South Africa Country Manager at Blue Prism, talking to us about the digitalization, there we go, its impact on the country's job creation. All right.